Good morning, everyone. Thank you to everyone joining us both in person and virtually from across the country for today's event, Raising the Bar, the Intentional Journey of a Conscious Company. I'm Great Lakes Bay Regional Chapter Leadership Team member Sam Jones, and I will be guiding us through today's program. On behalf of the Conscious Capitalism of the Great Lakes Bay Region Chapter Leadership Advisory Council and Leadership Team, sorry, they just changed our verbiage on us, so it's a big mouthful. Did I get it right, Angie? We appreciate you all taking the time to learn and grow in this community with us. Today we are joined by Catherine Allen, co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of AO People Partners, leadership coach, people strategist, and Conscious Capitalism Senior Leader Conscious Capitalism Senior Leader Network member, along with panelists of the TriStar Trust Company and their executive team, Jean Pickelman, who's their president and chief executive officer, and Great Lakes Bay Chapter Senior Leader Advisory Council Chair. Pavel Konechny, Senior Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, and Chief Investment Officer. Anthony Taylor, Senior Vice President, Director of Personal Trust, Administration, and Relationship Manager. And Kristen Werfel, the Vice President of Director of Marketing and Communications, all from TriStar Trust, to be our panelists today. Thank you for being here. As many of you know, conscious capitalism is a philosophy that emphasizes the human nature of business, as well as a movement of business leaders from around the world working to change the practice and perception of capitalism as a means to elevate humanity. Conscious Capitalism, Great Lakes Bay Region Chapter, is dedicated to catalyzing the movement by creating learning and development opportunities like today's event and building systems of support for practicing conscious capitalism throughout the Great Lakes Bay region. Twice per year, we offer a hybrid gathering such as this as a way for our community to gather together both in person and virtually to see how this philosophy takes shape in the leadership journeys and business practices of those conscious capitalists in our own network. Today, we are excited to be highlighting the power of people development as the highest form of social contribution and the organizational development work supporting the intentional, imperfect journey of conscious leaders working to embody the four tenets of higher purpose, conscious leadership, stakeholder orientation, and conscious culture within their organizations. Today's gathering will run until about 9:30 a.m. Following Catherine's keynote address, What's Possible When Companies Make Employee Development Core to Their Purpose, and the TriStar Trust panel discussion, you will have the opportunity to share conversation in the community with your table, small group, or virtual breakout room as we take time to reflect, gain perspective, and consider the possibilities around the next imperfect action step in your conscious leadership journey. We will then be in conversation as a large group for takeaways and final Q&A before transitioning into announcements, gratitude, and the closing of our session today. For those joining us virtually today, the Great Lakes Bay Region Chapter Leadership Team, John Wyrau, will be available via the chat throughout the breakout session to offer support and share your questions with the live audience. Now I'd like to welcome Senior Leader Advisory Council member John Lynch, President of Three Rivers Corporation, to the stage for opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you who are here both in person and virtually today. I am frequently asked why why Three Rivers Corporation chooses to be involved in conscious capitalism. And I usually go to the parable of the two builders. So if you know the parable of the bricklayers, there are two bricklayers doing their thing, going to work, building a wall. And a person walks by, encounters the two bricklayers, and asks them, "What are you doing?" The first bricklayer responds, "Well, isn't it obvious? I'm building a wall." The second bricklayer, however, says, "I'm engaged in building the most beautiful cathedral that mankind will ever have seen. And people will come here to celebrate and worship and enrich their lives." Two people, same task, completely different experiences. And for us at Three Rivers, this speaks to the nature of conscious capitalism. We know that building community with engaged employees brings exponentially increasing return on everything that we do. And we align with these four tenets. The tenets that revolve around higher purpose. We constantly ask ourselves, are we citizens or do we just live here? In terms of our corporate citizenship, we're intentional in making meaningful contributions to being a community of choice. We make direct financial impact, and our employees are involved in a wide range of youth activities, sports, scouting, positions in local government, local schools, you name it. In terms of stakeholder orientation, we ask of ourselves, do we have the courage necessary to take responsibility for inventing the future? We know that sustained success is always mutual. So we give and we receive professional mentoring, technical education in the trades, and individual and organizational leadership development. Our goal is to amplify the delivery of value. We also align with the third tenet of conscious leadership. We emphasize a we approach versus a me approach to this community building endeavor. And brought forth by our reputation, our history, the credibility of our organization and our people, we invite partners to the table. In cases like the flood recovery in Sanford, work with the Four Lakes Task Force, the revitalization of downtown Midland. We bring to the table partners that include even competitors to help make good things happen. And then finally, the conscious culture, the one that fosters a spirit of trust and cooperation amongst all stakeholders. For us, we're amplifying community value in a number of ways, not the least of which is what we would call the Friends and Family Plan, where we work actively to discount the access to services to folks like the Greater Midland Community Center, the Great Lakes Loons, the Midland Baseball Foundation, Mid-Michigan Community College, just to name a few. We know that to be a community of choice, we have to be an employer of choice. And for us, conscious capitalism enables that to happen. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Catherine Allen. Catherine's passionately dedicated to helping leaders of organizations lean into the power of developing people to drive business success and meaningful social contribution. Catherine brings over 25 years of experience working as an organizational people skills development practitioner and executive coach. Catherine's coaching practice focuses on helping executive leaders and teams own, plus model, plus drive business and people development in their companies. She's known as a trusted strategic thought partner who helps her clients explore the heart of issues, what's possible, what's needed from their leadership, and what's holding them back. As AO CEO, her focus is on guiding her team to build a full suite of capabilities to help leaders reimagine and create the culture, structure, systems, and incentives that make investing in conscious people development a more integrated and holistic way to foster the capabilities people and businesses need to grow and thrive today and into the future. Catherine is co-author of a book with Ed Offendinger titled Conscious, Capable, and Ready to Contribute: How Employee Development Can Become the Highest Form of Social Contribution. Please let's give a warm welcome to Catherine this morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much, John. And thank you to all of you for coming out this morning. It's really an honor to be a part of this program today. I imagine that I'm no different than many of you when I say that I feel like I found my tribe in the conscious capitalism community. It's great to discover that there are principles or tenets that give names to the way we've intuitively tried to conduct ourselves in our jobs, businesses, and our communities. And I imagine we also share an increasingly urgent sense of purpose and responsibility to show the next generation that capitalism, pursued consciously, can indeed elevate humanity to meet the needs of people and the planet. I love the theme of today's program, Raising the Bar, the intentional journey of a conscious company, because I think we are all saying yes to raising the bar for how we approach capitalism. And we raise the bar by deciding to be on an intentional journey of practicing the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism: higher purpose, stakeholder orientation, conscious leadership, and conscious culture. In a few minutes, you will hear stories from leaders at TriStar Trust about the journey they and their employees are on to live the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism in their company. But before we hear from them, I want to take a few minutes to focus on the stakeholder orientation tenet, specifically contributing value for one of your most important stakeholders, your employees. Employees are top of mind for employers today. Finding skilled talent is the #1 challenge employers say they face, followed by how to retain and keep them engaged. But attracting, retaining, and engaging your talent is not going to be your biggest HR challenge. It's actually going to be whether and how you will develop your employees' abilities to continuously learn and grow their people and technical skills to meet the needs of your business. And developing the next generation of leaders is a challenge many company founders, CEOs, and boards are facing right now. The bulk of my career has been devoted to the people side of business, specifically helping people in organizations resolve communications and interpersonal problems and work together more productively. Like I'm sure all of you, I've experienced and witnessed how workplace culture can bring out our best human qualities and our worst human tendencies. And like you, I've seen the real impacts and costs of effective and ineffective leadership for both employers and employees. As a trainer and coach, I've provided many of the training of traditional resources such as leadership workshops and coaching to develop foundational leadership skills. Many employees say after a workshop or program experience, they are excited and motivated to try out what they've learned. But it's common to stumble when attempting to apply the concepts and skills in daily work. In other cases, employees became disillusioned because the concepts they learned weren't always observable in their leaders, nor fostered in their work culture. 8 years ago, I had what you might call a come to Jesus moment in my career. I found myself questioning the effectiveness of our approach to leadership and people skills development. Research studies were validating my own experience that it is hard to retain what we learn and that many leadership programs are not producing the desired level of sustained improvement in leadership abilities. But at the same time, I knew it was also true that I and many individuals have had profound and often transformative personal and professional growth experiences because of employers' investments in our individual and team development. Seeing the challenges, but also the vital importance of human skills development led to a lot of deep reflection, talks with clients, colleagues, and research. What emerged for me was a clearer picture of the real barriers to overcome and the opportunities for real contribution from a more holistic and integrated approach to people development in the workplace. In our book, Conscious, Capable, and Ready to Contribute, How Employee Development Can Become the Highest Form of Social Contribution, my co-author and company co-founder, Ed Ofterdinger, and I share our view of the imperatives and the potential of human development at work and how it can transform organizations and business as we know it. We share our perspective and vision through a relatable and entertaining fable. It's a story of how a co-founder and CEO transformed his troubled firm by discovering the power of building a true culture of development for the good of all. I won't spoil the story, but I will share the underlying premise and ideas in our book. It starts with sharing two converging imperatives that now require us to look at the role of people development in the workplace differently. Next, I'll share some significant implications for organizations. And then I want to share a huge opportunity that we are not talking about. I'll end by sharing some practical steps your company can and may already be taking to create the conditions for a more conscious and effective approach to developing employees. So what are these imperatives? Well, the first imperative is a growing realization that organizations need employees at all levels operating consistently at higher levels of cognitive, emotional, and social intelligence. The reason is because we have to be able to learn and adapt continuously in a world that is fast-changing and more technically and socially complex. While interpersonal differences and challenges are a normal part of working together in an organization, in today's volatile and competitive business environment, companies can no longer afford the opportunity costs and time and resources from letting people and culture problems in organizations fester for days, months, or even years. We believe the single most important competitive advantage and determinant of business success for both employers and employees will be the ability to develop ourselves personally and learn and adapt quickly to constantly changing realities and opportunities. The second imperative is a growing consciousness among all generations, but especially the emerging generation, that the modern workplace in all its forms can and must become an environment where working adults of all backgrounds grow all their human capabilities and realize their full potential to experience acceptance, well-being, meaningful purpose, contribution, and fulfillment. In a world where many of our institutions seem to be unstable and uncertain, more employees now see business, their employers, as a stabilizing, reliable source for help and guidance to grow their capabilities so they can succeed, not just in their jobs, but in life. So we see at least three big implications for organizations from these converging imperatives. The first implication is that we will need to embrace human development as an expanded view of the purpose of modern business. Simply put, business will need to take a more conscious role in developing the human capabilities of working adults. Think about it. Where do most working adults get exposed to and learn people skills like emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, effective communications, and the list goes on? If we all agree that developing our personal and professional abilities will be a lifelong requirement of working adults and the organizations that employ them, then perhaps it's time to expand the purpose of modern organizations from a singular focus on delivering value to people through products and services to also include contributing to the development and potential of working adults. I say this because when we elevate developing people to the level of organizational core purpose, then it becomes easier for employers and employees to embrace all the implications that come with creating and sustaining a conscious and vibrant development culture. It rationalizes and invites a broader role for the function of learning and development in your organization. It shifts the view of learning and development from a discretionary business cost to being embedded as a core element of a company's business strategy. And it bridges the relationship between the work adults perform every day and the developmental journey each adult is on to learn and grow the full capabilities they need to be successful at work, at home, and in society. So if we accept this first implication, then a second implication is that organizations will have to get much better at developing the skills and capabilities of their employees. For decades, businesses in virtually every industry have provided access to training for employees for the specific technical and management skills required of their jobs. Today, however, we know that the non-technical soft skills are just as important as any technical skill and are foundational for people and leadership roles, not to mention being able to work well with fellow employees and customers. And even though we look to family and educational systems to build these foundational people skills in young people, the truth is that the way we actually develop people skills is not in a classroom, but on the job with other people and progressively over time and with age. But it's not for lack of trying or investing in development. Recent data suggests that U.S. companies collectively spend $166 billion annually on leadership development alone. Unfortunately, however, companies say they are not getting reliable results from their learning and development investments. This second implication leads to a third implication. Organizations will have to be better designed to foster a more holistic and integrated approach to developing the skills and capabilities of all their employees. The reason we say this is because until more recently, we haven't really designed our business culture, systems, and practices in ways that support everyday learning and growth. It's not to say that we aren't learning and growing at work every day. It's just that we're not leveraging all the ways the workday can support employees to develop themselves and each other. We think of learning and development as a separate activity that we do outside of our daily jobs. But what research shows, and business increasingly knows, is that the environment that is best for human learning and development is also best for optimal work productivity and engagement. Both employers and employees need learning and development to be more practical, more cost-efficient, sustainable, and effective. To achieve this, companies have to shift toward a more holistic approach in which learning and development is an explicit part of the company's culture and more integrated into the flow of everyday work. So these are imperatives and implications we are all talking more about. But there is a huge opportunity we are not talking about: the role businesses can play and contribute to the development and full potential of working adults. Consider that organizations now have the ability to incorporate decades of research from the fields of human and organizational psychology, adult development, and neuroscience on how we learn and develop. When you put all this together, you can begin to appreciate the important role modern organizations can and already do play in supporting the ongoing human development of working adults. Enabling your employees to develop the skills and capabilities to better cope, manage, and contribute to their world, at work, in their families, and in their communities, is not an insignificant contribution. We believe that developing people is not only key to business and career success, but it is what will make the most positive difference in our world. If you think about it, we recognize and incentivize companies for being responsible and committed stewards of our environment. We recognize and incentivize companies for their philanthropic commitment and contributions to their communities and many social causes. But we do not actually recognize and incentivize companies for their commitment and investment in developing their employees' human capabilities. That's why we believe it's time to go from what has been an implicit to a more explicit recognition of the role organizations play in developing the capabilities of working adults. It's time to make people development in the workplace a recognized and incentivized form of social contribution. By now, you might be thinking, Catherine, this all sounds great, but how do we go about designing and living a more conscious and integrated approach to people development in our company? In our book, we suggest 5 practical approaches or strategies that can help leaders enhance or get started in building a more conscious development culture. These strategies are like building blocks or architecture. Together, they support and reinforce the culture and practices that make it easier to leverage learning and growth from every aspect of the business today. The 5 strategies we encourage exploring are understanding the role of leaders, aligning business and people development strategies, identifying core people capabilities your business needs to be successful, defining development culture principles, and embedding development messages and practices into the employee life cycle. For the sake of time, I will encourage you to read more about our take on these strategies in our book. And for sure, there are more and more wonderful resources on how to create a more deliberate development culture in your organization. But I want to end by pointing out that if you are a conscious capitalist committed with your employees to the journey of being a conscious company, then none of what I've shared about the necessity and potential of people development at work is a revelation or necessarily a big stretch to realize in your company. You understand how people development can be an expanded purpose in your company. You understand the essential role leaders must play to own, model, and drive the development agenda in your business. And you understand that conscious culture is what expands and elevates the lives of your vital stakeholders, your employees. What is most important to remember is that growing your employees and your company consciously is an imperfect journey. It just requires leaders to be committed to the journey. So that is the end of my prepared remarks. I am very excited for the next part of this program. As I invite the team from TriStar Trust to come and join us, I want to point out to you that you have in your program booklet a number of questions that we invite you to be reflecting on, maybe jot some notes around, and take these questions back into your companies and have conversations with your leaders. Because getting the conversation going is really where it starts. So why don't we have the TriStar Trust team come on up to the stage, please? Thank you. All right, I'm going to take a seat here. Okay, so I want to share that I've had just the most wonderful opportunity to work with the senior leadership team at TriStar Trust. They are on a journey themselves to really take a deep dive into what does it take to develop themselves and their employees more consciously. So you'll hear a little bit about that, but you'll also hear how they are, with their employees, endeavoring to bring the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism to life in their company. But you might be asking yourself, what is TriStar Trust? So I want to let you know that TriStar is a privately held wealth management firm. They serve individuals to help them retire comfortably. They serve business to help them offer 401k plans to their employees. And they serve nonprofits and foundations and help them manage their investments and endowments so they can focus on the important work of their nonprofit missions. So it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Gene Pickelman, a co-founder and CEO and president of TriStar, and he's going to introduce his team.
Thank you, Catherine. And it's just been a pleasure to have you here. Catherine and I met at a CEO Summit in Austin last year, and we were looking to do some things in regard to raising the bar on employee engagement in our company, and she's just been a terrific choice and now a dear friend. So thank you, Catherine. Welcome, everybody. We are very, very thankful for the opportunity the leadership team of Conscious Capitalism Chapter has given us today to share a little bit about how we consciously approach our business. The title of this event, Raising the Bar, and our intentional efforts of trying to get better at what we do really fits, I think, with what we're trying to do at TriStar. But I want to really make this key point. We are not perfect. We do not have all the answers, and we are still learning and growing. The beautiful thing about raising the bar, there's no limit to where you can take your organization. And it's just amazing that what we're finding out, it's really not the big things we say, it's the little things that we do to continue to incrementally continue to raise. And what that raise the bar and do better, which in the end, it really helps us form solid relationships. But again, we're not perfect. We're going to share some things. And you've heard enough from me over the years on Conscious Capitalism. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce some of our senior leadership team, because they're the ones that really make it happen. The CEOs fooling themselves to think that they can do this. There's absolutely no way. And so it's my pleasure to introduce, I'll start on my far left, Pavel Konechny. Pavel's role at TriStar is he's Chief Investment Officer, Chief Financial Officer, and anything else we want him to do. And so Pavel's been with us for 5 years and just has been a great leader within our firm. Next, we have Anthony Taylor, who is the Senior Vice President. And as we deliver our services to our clients, all the aspects in between, from engaging with our clients to how does the work get done, Anthony is responsible for that. And Anthony's been with us 10 years now and has just been absolutely terrific. And then to my immediate left, look at this smile. This is why I wanted Kristen on board today. Kristen Werfel, she is the Director of Marketing and Communications for us. And what she does is not only brings a terrific smile to the stage, but she really brings energy to our organization. She brings ideas. She's always uplifting people. And again, I can't be more proud to have these individuals on our team and others throughout the group here. There's several of them over here. They're planted all over, so you can't escape some of the TriStar folks. So I'm proud of all of them. So we'll go from there.
Wonderful. All right, so we're going to start hearing the first story from Kristen. Sorry about it. I had a momentary senior moment. But Kristen is going to share with you the story of TriStar's journey with conscious purpose, higher purpose.
So I had the honor of joining the team in February 2019. And one of the first things I did right away was sit down with everybody to learn more about why are they here? Why are clients drawn to us? Why were they drawn to their roles? And did a lot of gathering of information. And there was themes that emerged and yet more clarity that had to happen. And I can remember Gene stopping in my office one April morning and he's like, we have a higher purpose, but I just can't say it. We've done this since 20 years, we've operated this way, but I wish that I could say it in a more succinct way. I was like, I can help, I can do this. So we then embarked on a journey, but we got a third-party vendor to help us hold focus groups. So I just want to pull back the curtain a little bit and tell you how we got there. We held focus groups with our clients and internal stakeholders and strategic partners. And we had an employee survey that went out to everybody asking the same questions and gathered all that feedback. And then sat down and had some really hard conversations about our strengths, our opportunities, our weaknesses, our threats, but then also what unites us and why are we all here. The goal was to come out with that higher purpose statement, that overarching statement to be above your mission, your vision, your values, your value proposition, all of those things that we all kind of know and those pieces and parts that make up your company. And there was 3 themes that came out of that in us being a conscious wealth management firm. And it was that we build genuine, caring relationships, relationships being the key word, to strengthen families, families being the second key word, to transform our communities. And that one statement, once it all clicked and we said it out loud, we were like, wow, that's why we're here. So, but it's the why are we here? It's that guiding light as to what's bigger than us. That's a big piece of the puzzle to solve, and we're not going to solve it. It's bringing us together that all solves it. But you can give a speech on that to anything. I could talk about I joined TriStar and make that all about me as to how it strengthened my relationship to meet Jean and strengthened my family as they had a more present mom who was not working nights and weekends as often. To transform the communities with the dollars that we give, and that's a big role of mine within the organization to represent us out in the communities in that way. So that was a journey of how we got there a little bit to show you that, but then a culmination 2 years later was making this video that we're about to show you, which we show at events like this to help give you even just a clearer picture as to why it is that is our higher purpose statement and how we live up to it. So if you could play the video.
When you get a group of people who know that they are really cared for and they feel like they matter, what happens is that you have a real force to doing good for the community and everyone involved. We took some really good time to identify how can we really make a difference in this world or the community that we live in. How can we make a positive impact on the people that we meet each day? The higher purpose that we came up with was we build genuine, caring relationships to strengthen families and transform community. It's what unites us. It's why we wake up in the morning to come in. We have personal wealth management clients, retirement plans, and philanthropic clients. But what's really important is how we're impacting in a positive way the people that we really truly care about and love. Our vision was to have experienced, highly competent people serving our clients with one additional factor. They are such caring individuals. And I'm not sure if that's something you can train someone to do. And that part of serving extends down to your family. It extends down to your clients. It extends down to all of your stakeholders because you make a positive impact. It brings that sense of meaning to life. What we knew is that if we could treat people in the ways that I've described of a comprehensive approach, total objectivity, high level of concern and care, we thought that that was going to be pretty special, and it was true.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, next we're going to learn about how TriStar is endeavoring to embody conscious culture in their organization. And so, Anthony? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Anthony, you were very surprised there, weren't you?
A little bit.
Jane, I guess we talked so much to you, I was really focusing on your team. that Jean's actually going to speak for just a few minutes about how TriStar endeavors to approach building stakeholder orientation into the way their company operates.
Thank you. The power behind the integration of stakeholders, this is the key to helping you really perform your mission and accomplish your higher purpose. It's those stakeholders that you can leverage all around to help you move forward. This is probably one of the biggest of all the 4 tenets. This is the one that I'm learning the most about, is how do we leverage all the people that are connected to us. And when we look at our stakeholders, well, who are they? Well, it's our staff, it's our employees, it's our clients, it's our board of directors, many of them who are here today. Thank you very much. It's the strategic alliances. These are the companies that help us do and deliver what we want to our clients, as well as community. And when we take a look at all those stakeholders, the key thing about that, as far as being effective, is our relationships. I know we're overstressing that probably, but I can't really point to another thing that really helps us become effective. And how do we build, relationships? The first is having the mindset of it has to be a win-win-win situation. There's never a trade-off. If it's good for the clients but bad for the employees, go back to the table. Figure it out. There is an answer there. If you're just persistent enough and taking the time, and you all come up with the answer. Again, it's integration of all stakeholders. So you go back to all those relationships. You begin to have those conversations. But the key that I see in regarding bringing this conscious effort to our companies, it's having one-on-one conversations with each of your stakeholders. And it's just not me doing that. It's all your employees, especially the leadership team. We have to get out. You have to spend time with the directors. You have to spend time with the clients. You have to spend time with your employees. And the other key there is that we just don't want to know about them. We want to know them intimately. We want to know what their kids are like, where they go to school, what excites them, what motivates them, what's your perceptions about community. I spend probably over 50% of my time working with people in the community, to our strategic alliances, to others, to try to build those relationships. Because when things happen, that's what you can rely on to get you through those most difficult things. And again, today in this audience, we have all of our stakeholders, which is great. And we have the opportunity to share the deeper story of what we're trying to accomplish. And so from having individual meetings to getting to know people deeper, I think that's probably the how-to. This is where you need to spend the time. But I want to share one quick story with you in regard to stakeholder orientation. We began TriStar Charitable Foundation this year, and we're really putting it out there. And the board has been really gracious at funding this foundation, but this year we wanted to have a signature event, so we decided to have a charity pro-am. And what we wanted as a purpose of this, our charitable foundation, was that we wanted to just be an encourager to others to give joyfully, to give generously, and to bring unity into our community. This was not about so much TriStar, but we wanted to use our foundation, as a means to bring people together and to shine a light. This is Kristen's idea, to shine a light on an issue within our community that needs attention. And I'm happy to report that all of our stakeholders were involved and were participatory. Not only did they give generously, they gave joyfully. And the unity that came about from bringing this Pro-Am together was fabulous. The leadership really started with Mark Flagenheimer, who's in the audience today, is really the chair of our board. It started at the top. And he had this idea several years ago, and we just took that idea and we had just a spectacular charity Pro-Am. We had 21 teams. It was very expensive, but we had all of our stakeholders represented in the field. We had people out in California, to New York, to Kansas City, all participating and contributing for mental health in our community. That's what pulled us together. It was the reason why we put things together and to raise some money. Our goal was about $100,000 in the beginning, and then as we continued to work forward, it turned out that we were able to raise, all the stakeholders, $187,000 for mental health. So what we learned there, the key there was when you went to ask someone to participate, it was the relationship that made it so easy. And again, we move forward and we want to continue that going forward. So that was a good example of stakeholder orientation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gene. So you're going to see that thread of relationships in the next tenet that Anthony's going to speak about, conscious culture.
Thank you, Catherine. And for the record, public speaking is not my forte, but talking is. So hopefully I don't bore you all too much with my speech here. But before I get too far in with conscious culture, I want to share a little bit of my path and journey to TriStar because I think it's quite relevant to some of the stories that I'm going to share with each of you today. About 13 years ago, Gene and I met sitting on a board of directors here for a local nonprofit, and it was during that time that he and I had established a pretty good relationship with one another. And at the time, I was working for another great local organization and was quite happy, but Gene was persistent, and he talked to me after every single board meeting. He would talk to my wife and I at community events. He would continuously talk to me about TriStar, what TriStar means, and that if I was ever looking for another challenge or another opportunity, that I need to sit down with Gene and have a conversation and explore what those opportunities might look like. So I really had a non-traditional path to TriStar. I never applied for a job application or went through that process of the phone interview or really needing to read about the website. Rather, I learned about TriStar from one of the founders and really got to learn about the culture and the practices that TriStar was really trying to accomplish. And when I was preparing for today's speech, I started thinking about, had I went through that interview process, I hope that culture is a topic of discussion, whether from the applicant or from the employer, because you don't want to be sold a bill of goods that's not actually true. So when I was thinking about today, I kind of thought that when you're applying for a job and getting ready to accept that offer, it's kind of like proposing to your future spouse. Now, bear with me here, okay? I'm getting there, Pavel. And what I mean by that is, think about it. When you're dating, you've done your homework, you've done your research, you've been on a few dates, you've met the family, hopefully you've interacted with some friends, and just like with an employer, you've read the website, you've done the phone interview, you've been through a few interviews with some folks and their representatives, but at the end of the day, you don't know if that person's crazy until you put a ring on it. No differently than with an employer. You don't know if that employer is selling you a bill of goods until you actually sign on that acceptance offer. So I share this with you because I really feel it's relevant as I sit up here today and talk about having a conscious culture. And what is a conscious culture? Really, it boils down that a conscious culture is the sum of all the values and principles that make up the moral and social fabric of an organization. And that's probably the simplest I could state what that is. And TriStar's values are integrity, caring, harmony, enthusiasm, and objectivity. Those are pretty broad, but what I was hoping to do today was to share with you 3 separate stories about how those values are integrated into our organization. One from a client perspective, one from our employees or teammates' perspective, and lastly from some of the organizational changes that we've made for the betterment of our employees. When I first joined TriStar, there was this saying of, we have a DNA of caring. And when I say that term, a lot of you probably wonder, well, what is the DNA of caring? And that quickly became apparent to me after I joined. It was about a year after I had joined TriStar, one of my colleagues, Jack Kidwell, received an unfortunate phone call that one of his clients had unexpectedly passed away that day. And to make the situation even more traumatic, that very same day, their 2 children and 5 grandchildren were traveling from out of town to celebrate the birthday of one of their grandchildren. And Jack immediately went to, how can I help you? And he had worked with this family for a number of years, and they needed some help that day. Think about telling your grandchildren that grandma's no longer here, especially on one of their birthdays when they're there to celebrate. So Jack went into action very, very quickly, and he went shopping, bought a bunch of gifts. He brought them back to the office. Our entire team wrapped those gifts that entire day. He and I then spent the evening at Chuck E. Cheese entertaining 5 young children all evening to ensure that the family had the necessary time to work through those difficult details of planning for a funeral. But more importantly, that family trusted us so much with those children, and you can't accomplish that unless you've really built those strong relationships with those clients over time. And this is just one of many stories that I could share with you, from our relationship managers buying groceries for our elderly clients to helping them move on a Saturday when they have no one else. And over time, that DNA of caring really translated into that higher purpose that Kristen shared with you earlier today. And I believe that the actions of all of our teammates is why we've been able to accomplish a 98.5% client retention rate over the last 22 years, which we're very proud of. When I think about our teammates, this makes me very happy because, again, when you think of having a conscious culture, you want to have fun with the people that you work with. And when I think of the many stories that I could share, more recently, we hired a young gentleman, maybe 23 years of age, and he was part of a conversation that another one of our colleagues was having car trouble that day, and that individual was quite mechanically sound. It certainly wasn't me. I was going to give him some recommendations to maybe Garber, but on a Friday night, you know, when I reflect back at myself when I'm 23 years of age on a Friday night, I'm not thinking about helping a colleague of mine. I'm thinking about, you know, which bar I'm probably going to go to and where I'm going to have fun. But in this case here, this young gentleman spent the entire Friday night fixing another one of our teammates' car. The entire night he spent doing that to ensure that that car was safe for the road. And these stories, they exist in the past year, from individuals that are sick with COVID and dropping off home-cooked meals so that way they have something to eat, to driving hundreds of miles away to clean out a home for a recent hire. So these stories just exist. And when we think of engagement of our staff, national average from a recent Gallup poll showed that only 36% of employees are engaged in the workplace. In our most recent survey of our staff, we have an employee engagement rate of a roughly 85%. And to transition now to some organizational changes that we've made. Coming out of the pandemic, Jean already mentioned that, you know, mental health is a real concern here, and we're not perfect. We've learned from a lot of great organizations out there, and we've learned at how effective employee assistance programs can be. So over the last year, we've implemented an EAP program, or an employee assistance program, that allows any one of our teammates or their families to have 4 free counseling sessions with a licensed professional, and we've had a number of individuals that have been taking advantage of that. And even something that's going to affect individuals financially, when you think of the rising healthcare costs right now, we recognize that healthcare costs for dependents are very expensive, especially for a small organization such as ours. And more recently, we've decided to subsidize dependent care for our employees as well, and that has been a major relief for many of our employees that have been taking advantage of that. And as Jean said, we're not perfect. We learn every day. We learn from a lot of great companies out there. I'm not perfect. Ask Samantha. She's in the front row. But I'll leave you with this, that great companies don't hire skilled people and motivate them. Great companies hire motivated people and inspire them. And that's something that I hope that each of us are able to do in our daily interactions with all of those stakeholders. And I want to give a shout out to Catherine as well, because Jean and our board have been very conscious in providing executive coaching for many of us in the organization. And I've had the pleasure of working closely with Catherine over the last year, and it has really changed my life, not only from how I behave in the workplace, but also my personal life on how to think differently and think more consciously in my day-to-day actions. So thank you very much, and I'll hand it off now to you, PK.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go ahead and talk to us about conscious leadership.
There's a couple items I'd like to address before I talk about conscious leadership. Number one, I just noticed in the video that I'm wearing the same clothes that I had in the video. So I have more clothes. It's a coincidence. And then the second thing, I would challenge you to take a look at the program and open it up to the bio page. Do it. Where my bio is versus where Anthony bios is. And just see how inversely correlated the length of those bios are to our height. So anyway,
We still love you, Pavel.
yeah. It's the math guy in me. I'm not terribly comfortable talking about leadership, let alone conscious leadership, as if I was some kind of a resident expert in it. But it is a very interesting concept to me that I strive to master. I'm very far from it, but what I love about it is just the word conscious. Conscious as in understanding the impact of the decisions that we make. It has to do with empathy and understanding how others around us are feeling. And it's far-reaching. It's not just employees. It's our strategic partners. It's all of the people that we impact with our actions. It takes an incredible amount of a system intelligence to actually understand the connections. And I just want to share with you a couple of stories of how we apply this concept as we make decisions. You know, we're a rapidly growing company, and just like any other rapidly growing companies, we're running out of space. We needed to open up more offices in Saginaw, and the only really building where we could do it is in Midland. So we are expanding our Midland location. Our friends at Three Rivers are just finishing up one section of that building, and it's quite fantastic. But then the next step in all of this is to determine, how we're going to move people. And from some of the previous experience I've had, you just identify the offices that you need to free up in Saginaw, and then you tell the people in those offices that now you're working out of Midland. But we didn't take that approach. And we spent a lot of time, and I know it was somewhat frustrating to our team members because we spent a lot of time talking about it without actually making a decision, because we were taking all of these dimensions into consideration that included how far would they have to drive, how big of a change it is, are we taking them away from their friends, from their team members, are they collaborating with one team more than the other? And then we proceeded to actually have conversations with the individuals to make sure that they are comfortable with this movie, that does not in any way impact negatively their lives. Because the way I look at conscious leadership is about making sure that everybody who we touch, we improve their overall life experience. Speaking of the digs, at this day and age, we're all talking about remote work. And we're a relationship, you've heard us talking about, we're a relationship organization, and our preference is to work together in our offices for a variety of reasons. One of them being just a professional and individual or personal development that we get from learning from each other. So we made a decision to invest money to actually make the digs cool, to make them nice. My idea there was, what do we have to do in order for people to want to work from the office as opposed to want to work from home? Basically, the benefits of the environment outweigh the benefits of working from home. And it's going okay. I'm a positive for the most part. I got one colleague down in Midland that he's in his late 20s, and he came to me and he goes, "Man, these things are so cool. I never want to work from home." I'm like, victory number one. But I'm actually hearing that a lot more, and it's important to us because, as I said, it's conscious. It's taking a look at all of the connectivity, and we know what we want as a company. We want what we want. We know what we want for our team members, but we also are sensitive to what our team members are looking for. Which brings me to the last point, just addressing the work from home. Again, our desire is for people to work in our offices, but we also understand that life happens. And so we created this policy of when life happens, you can work from home. So we have that flexibility to do that. Now, when I say policy, a lot of times people write a policy and exactly, it's all spelled out exactly how that applies. We're still working on it. We need some more clarity because you will be shocked to know what kind of stuff life can throw your way that I've never heard of as to the reason why to work from home. And for the most part, I don't think people are making stuff up, but some of it is pretty out there. But the point is that we pay attention to it, and I think that speaks to the consciousness of our companies, that we pay attention to it and we allow it to happen because we've proven that we can work from home and we can be effective. We just know that working in our offices is better yet for everybody involved. So these are just a handful of examples as to how we approach our thought process as it relates to being a conscious company.
Thank you very much, Pavel. And in case you didn't know, humor is a part of being a conscious leader because it's very engaging. And the repartee between conscious leaders is also very engaging. So thank you guys very much for sharing your stories. We now want to just open up the floor for questions from you all, questions for TriStar, questions for me about what it takes to embody the tenets of conscious capitalism.
Well, just to break the ice.
Thank you very much.
So, Gene and I have known each other for longer than one of those I want to admit to. But I would say, Gene, that what you have promoted here with TriStar was part of your nature to begin with. What would your advice be or guidance be to the leader that's sitting here today or listening online that goes, I really want to do that, I don't know where to start?
That's a real good question. I think at the end of the day, you have to begin with your purpose in life. And your purpose in life, what is it? Who do you want to serve? How do you want to bring value to others and things of that nature? And it's just, it's always been on my heart, community. And so my recommendation is for the CEOs to really do maybe a purpose search individually and find out who you really are. The self-awareness that we talk about. Why are we really here, and who do we want to serve, and things of that nature. And then, because that has to be aligned with the higher purpose of the organization. It'd be hard for a CEO not to have something personally, really aligned with the higher purpose of the organization. I just don't, I would find that very, very difficult. But I think that was kind of it wasn't, as Kristen said, it wasn't Jean didn't come out here and just write, this is our higher purpose. I mean, she invited all stakeholders, so they own it. But in there, I did have my say, and it perfectly aligns with, who I am, and that makes it easier to manage and live.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, go ahead.
I guess we'll keep it at the center table for a moment. I guess, but to Jean and the whole TriStar panel, Jean, you mentioned that this is a journey, and by far you've made great progress, but you're not perfect. So I guess for yourselves as an organization, but also your stakeholders, is there some type of formal mechanism that you have in place to capture those moments when you haven't been perfect, where you've kind of failed against your purpose, if you will? And I guess failure isn't necessarily bad; it's an opportunity to learn. But I guess what type of mechanisms do you all have in place that help you understand when you're not meeting that purpose, and how do you then improve against it?
Guys, you want to comment on that?
I think from my standpoint, it is, when I was talking about the system intelligence, is the far-reaching impact of the decisions, is when I recognize, and this is just me talking, when I recognize that I missed something. Because I get the feedback, and that's one of the things we're open. We're trying to have a conversation. We're providing a valuable feedback when it happens. And so I can see that we might have made a decision where, as Jean mentioned, we want it to be win-win-win, but somebody loses, somebody, and we might not be aware of it at the time because that's not our intention, but it comes back. So because it's a journey, it's a learning experience, and I look at it from a standpoint of dimensions. I work with Ed on executive coaching, and I love working with him because I go through all these different steps. I'm like, dude, I got all this covered. He goes, well, did you think about that? And so a lot of times you miss it, but you get it, and then you don't miss it again as time goes on because you realize there's another connection or another dimension to consider.
Just to add on to that real quick, one of the mechanisms we have in place, and we encourage each of us to do that, is that we have one-on-one meetings with our staff. And not only from a group standpoint, but periodically, it depends on the individual, but you have that one-on-one. And for us, we do that on a regular basis, and I invite them to share, hey, where have I disappointed you, and things of that nature. And that's what I'm trying to work on, trying to lean in, understand more, not be so critical, okay? Some of the CEOs might maybe relate to that, but I do. And anyway, it's hard. And but I think providing the forum for people to meet and have open, honest conversations is key.
Okay. Do we have time for just one more quick question? One quick question. So yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. This one's for Anthony. I'm a marriage counselor, so I was mildly offended when you compared relationship. And I'm curious, was it love at first sight? And did you experience anxiety as he was pursuing you?
I've never said this out loud, but Gene, thank you for being such a gentleman for 3 years and not selling me something that was different when I joined the organization. No, Gene was, what Gene described to me during those 3 years, it was enough at the time that I was happy and I was working for another great company at the time. And there's a lot of great companies that exist out there. And really, it was just one time we were leaving an event, and Samantha looked at me and said, I really think you need to sit down with Gene. I mean, he was just so genuine in those discussions and thought process that I took a leap of faith, not really knowing what journey I was going to be on, but it's been one of the most fulfilling journeys I've ever taken in my life, if not the most fulfilling, because I've learned a lot about myself along the way, and I've learned from a lot of individuals that are a heck of a lot smarter than me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that question framed in humor. So now we want to invite you all to be in a conversation at your table for a few minutes. And Sam, are you going to come up and guide us there?
in giving, in giving Catherine and the TriStar team a quick round of applause. Now that you've had a chance to learn more about the deep value of employee development and the imperfect, never-ending journey to embodying the tenets of conscious capitalism, we invite you to join in community at your table or virtual breakout room to consider and discuss the possibilities of your conscious journey. The small group discussion questions can be found in your program. I will read them off to you briefly. So please consider and discuss the following. Number 1, what is the conversation you want to be having with your organization and fellow leaders as a result of participating in today's event? Who would these leaders be? Question number 2, define in future vision how your company will embrace the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism. How are these 4 tenets being expressed now? How could your organization or team more deeply express the 4 tenets within your living, breathing organization? And finally, question number 3, how am I personally showing up as a conscious leader and a conscious capitalist within my organization and my work, regardless of my formal title? We'll give you guys a few minutes here, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes to wrap up here.
Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry to cut your time short, but in respect of your time this morning, we're going to go ahead and come back to the large group. Thank you all. I love to hear that you are having this beautiful conversation around ways that you can raise the bar as a conscious organization. My name is Angie Krenz. I am chapter coordinator. And again, to respect your time today, we're just kind of shifting up the program just a little bit so that we can have you out of here right around 9:30. What I would love to do is take just a moment to take one or two key takeaways from your conversation. Is there anybody willing to share with us this morning? Yes, Rich. Good choice. Absolutely. Yes, thank you for sharing that. And that is one thing that comes up often. It doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur just getting started with a small team or if you're the CEO of a very large corporation. Your challenges at the end of the day are the same. You go home with the same issues. You come back to work with the same concerns. Your love and care for those in the home and at work kind of converge all together. So thank you for bringing that to light. I appreciate that. One more takeaway. Yes, thanks, Ricardo.
Bob Vandermeer made a great comment that I thought was worth noting. Just one comment. That success drives a lot of things. So if you have success, it can drive culture. And one example that he gave was promotion. So if this person's getting promoted and you advertise why he or she is being promoted, culture, mission, conscious capitalism, whatever those values are, it can embody others to say, you know what, I want to do that, or that person has a mentor, who is that person's mentor? So I thought that was something that resonated very strongly.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. If you couldn't hear, to drive your incentivization, or incentivize, we'll go with that word this morning, based on the values of your company and the tenets of conscious capitalism. I think that's a really powerful way to approach that. Thank you for that wisdom. Any final ideas? All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move into wrapping up for the day with some gratitude and recognition of our own. On behalf of the chapter Senior Leader Advisory Council, thank you all so very much for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate our guest speaker and our panelists, Catherine, the TriStar team. Thank you so much. The ability to, or the opportunity to sit here and really hear your stories and be able to recognize ourselves within those and where we're at in the journey is so powerful for those of us who are trying to make choices around our own conscious journeys. So I hope that supported all of you in taking some imperfect action as you move forward on your journey as well. I'd also like to thank those who make this event possible, the Great Lakes Bay Region Chapter Leadership Team. If you could all maybe just raise your hand for a moment. This is the team I am so powerfully blessed to work with. Thank you for all you do to make these events possible. Also, the SVSU Conference Center team, those who are so kind as to take care of our technology and nourish us throughout this morning, we appreciate you. And then our generous sponsors. Thank you to our event sponsors today, TriStar Trust, Regina, Stevens Center for Family Business, Lori Carroll for Harbor Light Photography, and those beautiful programs that you have are on behalf of Rhinewold Printing Corporation. So thank you to all of our generous sponsors. Additionally, thank you to our 4 tenant partner sponsors. These are the 40-plus companies who lock arms with us to offer opportunities like this to come together, to work through our journey together and support one another as we move back into the world of business. Those companies each make about they make $1,000 contribution to our organization each year. That allows us to continue to bring you free educational events, CEO roundtables, and other opportunities to grow together. Many of you have asked me at the last event how you can get involved as a 4-tenant partner. So on the last page of your program today, there's a little bit of information. as well as a link where if you're a techie person who would like to just jump in, we invite you to head to that link at your nearest convenience and join us on this journey, or reach out to me or any member of our board or leadership team at any time to learn more. That 4-tenant partner annual benefit includes your name and logo displayed on our website and all of our printed materials. Your logo also is part of our newsletters. You have 4 free tickets to each of our Moving Concepts to Workshop or Practice workshop. Man, I'm going to go take a nap after this. Let's start that again. Moving Concepts to Practice virtual team workshop. You also have an exclusive invitation to our CEO roundtables, and that is a partner period that lasts for 1 year. So again, thank you to our generous 4-tenant partners. We are so privileged to lock arms with you in this mission. And then a few final announcements. Let's see, our next Moving Concepts to Practice virtual team workshop takes place on November 16th. And we're also delighted to be just launching a new program, Growing as a Conscious Organization. This program is taking you through the actual journey of the Conscious Capitalism Field Guide. It is facilitated by our own Mark Sauter, John Wyrau, and Mark Maxwell. There's going to be some information as well as those individuals out at the table as you leave the room today, where you can learn more about those programs and let us know if you're interested in signing up. And finally, I invite you to take a look at Catherine's book, as well as her 3 ways to consciously invest in your people. If you would like to learn more about Catherine and her work, certainly reach out to her at the end of the program, or please reach out to me and I will connect you with her. And before you leave today, these are my 2 finals. If you will please take off your lanyards and leave them on the table so that we can use those again at our next events. That's our small contribution to the environment while we're here. And also, there is a survey. If you would take a moment just to let us know what you valued in this event today, what we could do to improve your next experience with us, we would appreciate that. And on behalf of this chapter and Conscious Capitalism, Inc., I am so grateful, as we all are, to be locking arms with each one of you in this mission, to have amazing people like Sam being our speaker, to have amazing panelists, and Catherine. We just invite you to be the light that you are as you leave this place today, to go out and elevate humanity by taking your imperfect action steps along your journey. And please, please reach out to let us know how we are best able to support you along the way. Enjoy a wonderful day.